Hi friends! Welcome to Organic True Crime, where I talk about interesting true crime stories. This month, I'm talking about scams. If you see my arm twitching, it's because I have a dog down here trying to get attention. Anyway, this month I've been talking about scams, and today I'm going to be talking about a holiday scam. John Duval Gluck Jr., who used children's letters to Santa to scam 1920s New York City out of what would be millions of dollars today. It's crazy, isn't it, Stella? So, John Duval Gluck Jr., I'm just going to call him John after that, was born on Christmas Day in the late 1800s. He was the oldest of 5 boys and eventually inherited his father's large-scale shipping company. So he had a good idea of shipping and also had a special connection with the holiday. He was born on December 25th. So around the year 1910 in New York City, writing letters to Santa was becoming really popular, and the post offices in the city started having to look for help to try and deal with and sort through and handle all of these letters to Santa. Sorry, my dog makes a lot of strange noises. Anyway, in 1913, John stepped forward and decided to fund the Santa Claus Association, which at the time was basically just a group of volunteers that would receive all of the Santa letters from the post office, and they would sort through them. And if they saw something like a mention of abuse or starvation or something serious like that, they would forward the letter on to authorities for further investigation. Or if they saw a family that seemed like they needed some help to make the holiday special, if they seemed like they were down on their luck, they would send the letter to a potential donor who could then buy a gift or something for the family and send it to them or deliver it to them themselves. And fun fact, at this point, it was not like widely agreed that Santa lived in the North Pole. So all of the letters addressed to Santa were addressed to all kinds of crazy places. Like one was behind the moon, which I thought was cool. Like, where would you think Santa lived if you didn't think he lived in the North Pole? I don't know. Anyway, the Santa Claus Association. So after the first year, they connected people and ended up being responsible for over 13,000 gifts being given to children in need. So they did the same thing again the next year, and it went really well again. It started being really popular. So John decided that he wanted to expand, and his way of doing that was to come up with plans for the Santa Claus building, which was very extravagant. He wanted to have a 20-foot deep archway as the entrance that was made of white marble, and he wanted inside of this archway to be lined with different representations of Santa Claus from different countries, and each of these Santa Clauses would be made, there's no plural for Santa Claus because there's just one, would be made by an artist from that country. And then inside the building, he wanted to have space for other charities to also work with. Anywho, inside of the building, he wanted to have space for other charities to be able to work out of. And then he also wanted to have this toy market that would have toys from around the world and basically like Santa's workshop. This whole Santa Claus building. But this Santa Claus building would cost, at the time, what was about $300,000, which today would be several $1 million. And Santa Claus Association did not have this kind of money, so John Duval Gluck Jr., I don't know why, I just like saying the whole thing, he started raising money for his Santa Claus building. And instead of the association only sending letters to potential donors and having them take care of it, they also started accepting direct donations to the association to build their Santa building. And they did this for several years. They kept running like normal and collecting money and also still connecting families to donors. And the way they did this was very gradual. So at first they just started asking for stamps so that they could send response letters and things like that. And then they started asking for gifts to be donated so that they could send gifts to children. And then they started just asking for money to be donated to the association. But these donations were not really enough. They were not going to get them a $300,000 building. So John, who was very capable in his very confident in his capability to raise money, I guess. He was very charming, smooth talker kind of person, you know? So he figured he could raise this money. But the way that he decided to go about that was to create fake charities and accept donations for these as well. And he would use the list of donors that he had from the Santa Claus Association and would call them with a fake charity and ask for money. And there were a couple, he had a whole lot of them, but there were a couple that really bothered me. One was raising money for a serum for cancer, which is just a horrible thing to use for your own personal gain. And the other was crazy because it was collecting money for window cribs, which I've seen this picture before of a window crib and I legitimately thought it was just a fake meme, but it's not. That was an actual thing. Doctors recommended that people put their baby out a window in a metal cage so that they could be exposed to fresh air. Is that not insane? And just terrifying looking. Anyway, so he used that and collected money and said he was collecting it for the Window Crib Society, but he was not. So John just basically used a lot of very sketchy methods to raise money for years until some attention was brought to it, and unfortunately it came in a really sad way. Which brings us to the Boy Scouts. So at this time, in the early mid-1920s, there were two Boy Scouts, two different kinds of Boy Scouts operating in New York City. There was the American Boy Scout Organization, and then there was the Boy Scouts of America. And they did a lot of very similar things, but the main difference between the two was the American Boy Scout American Boy Scout, I can't do it. The American Boy Scout Organization. Wow, did it. They were basically there to prepare children to eventually be in the military. Now, this was post-World War I era, so some people were convinced that every boy was eventually going to have to grow up and be in the military. So the American Boy Scout Association provided their Boy Scouts with rifles. And the Boy Scouts were told, you only use real ammo if you're hunting or you're doing target practice. Other than that, you use your blanks. And they were, I assume, taught safety. But they were sent home with these rifles. They were allowed to just have a Boy Scout approved rifle and walk around with them. Which I just could not wrap my brain around for this exact reason. When one day, there was a 9-year-old boy who was walking home with two other little boys who were a little bit older than him, when they got stopped by a pretty well-known bully in the area who was 12 years old and who happened to be an American Boy Scout with his Boy Scout approved rifle. And he told the boys he was playing cops and they had to put their hands up. And the two older boys hid behind something and didn't want to play. But the 9-year-old, unfortunately, stayed out, and he said that he didn't think that the 12-year-old was going to shoot him. And he just said, no, you're not going to. And unfortunately, he was wrong. And the 12-year-old boy shot the 9-year-old boy in his stomach, and he was taken to the hospital where he passed away. Because they gave a child a rifle. And the little boy said that he meant to be using blanks, but I guess accidentally wasn't, which very well could be true. I'm not saying it is the 12-year-old boy's fault. You're not really at an age where you can even grasp the magnitude of what happened. To some point, I don't know. That's a tough one, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So anyway, this incident occurred, and at that point, police started looking into the American Boy Scout organization and also lots of other organizations, and they found the Santa Claus Association, which was in some way connected to the American Boy Scouts. I think John just was affiliated with them in some way. And when he even briefly looked at the Santa Claus Association, this investigator realized that there was literally no trace of what happened to people's money once they donated it to the Santa Claus Association. They would give their money and that was it. They didn't even have something saying that that money was specifically for the Santa Claus building or anything like that. They just accepted money. And he found that the higher ups in the company had very, very high salaries, but that was about it. He couldn't find any record of what was actually happening. And he also couldn't find any actual effort towards building a Santa Claus building. And this was in 1927, so this is like 10 years after he started raising money for his Santa Claus building. But there was like his original sketch and plan, and that's it. There was no actual effort towards building this building. But there was also no large sum of money just waiting to be put towards this building. So this sketchiness was brought to the attention of the post office in New York City, and they decided to stop affiliating with the Santa Claus Association, and they stopped sending them any letters, which basically just kind of shut down the Santa Claus Association indirectly, because they can't that's what they were. They sorted through Santa letters, and then they didn't get Santa letters anymore. So what are you going to raise money for now? But since there was no paper trail, there was no actual evidence of John doing anything with that money, anything at all with that money, or actually agreeing or saying that he was going to do anything with it. They couldn't really do anything. He didn't get arrested or charged with anything. They just shut down his Santa Claus Association, and then he took his wife and they moved to Miami, Florida, where he became a real estate agent and for the rest of his career. And then in 1951, he died at the age of 73. And that's it. He got to scam New York City for 10 years and just, that's it. That's that. Go on, live your life. Great. I hope you enjoyed that Santa scam for today as much as I did. I will see you again next week for a whole new theme, which I don't even know what it is yet, so I can't reveal it. Happy holidays. I'll see you guys later. Bye.